This episode of Product for Product is brought to you by The Resurrector, a book by Moshe Mikanovsky, now pre-selling at igg.me/at/the-resurrector.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Product for Product. Today, Moshe and I are kicking off the series on in-app messaging. In-app messaging is a way of engaging with users while they're actively using the application. Product teams can send targeted messages, alerts, offers, etc. that can help drive user adoption and improve experiences. So let's go ahead and drop in. Moshe, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful.
Excellent.
It's going great here in Atlanta. It's Hot Atlanta is living up to its name.
Oh, yeah. So in Toronto, it's also really nice, just a bit of rain.
Well, excellent. Looking forward to hopping into this series on in-app messaging.
Yeah, in-app messaging is actually something I really like. And I've been using it for quite some time. So I'm also love to learn what new is out there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing in-app messaging probably for 6 years now. I started when I was working at a company called Firmex here in Toronto, and we're doing virtual data rooms. One of the struggles that I had was how do I get access to my users in a much more direct way than through customer services, customer success, through the account managers. And I was looking for basically do it through the application. So I looked for different systems, and I found Pendo at the time. And anyone who listened to us for a while now know that I'm biased about this. So I do mention Pendo, but I'm not getting paid by them or anything. So this is not an endorsement of any way. I choose them eventually, although I was looking also at Intercom. But I was able then to basically put a message on the screen inside the application and tell users that I want to talk with them. Probably everyone that listen here have seen those and used those. So maybe you don't have yet in-app messages in your product, but you probably have used other products that are doing that. Do you have some, examples in mind, Matt, maybe of instant that you have seen messages, not necessarily, asking for your opinion or asking you to introduce yourself to them, but any type of message?
Yeah, I'm thinking just in general, I've come across whenever I'm been in an application or I might see an offer. And this is kind of the question, I was thinking in my head around this blurs the line maybe between marketing and product. Because I know your favorite word, marketing. I remember there being an offer or promotional information saying, "Hey, there's a sale going on." I'm thinking of DSW, which is a shoe store, is one that comes to mind. I think there was some in-app messaging in there about, hey, prompting me to engage with the application, prompting me to maybe possibly buy something in order to get a discount. That was one of the cases that sprang to mind most recently.
Yeah, marketing definitely is something that a lot of companies can use that, especially with B2C, where you have to market your product and there is new products all the time, like an online store or something like that. So definitely that is a great usage of that. And one of the nice things about in-app messaging products is that you offload the development of these type of messages to a product that you get off the shelf, rather than you have to build it in-house. And that's something I always love doing when I develop products. I want to focus myself and the entire team that I'm working with on the core value that my product is creating, rather than reinventing the wheel with many other features that usually every product needs. But there are other companies that are building specific solutions for that. So in the same way that I'm not going to build a whole security system. I will use some existing security system, firewalls, whatever it is. Or in the same way that I will use, maybe a translation service. Will not try to translate everything myself. I will also, prefer to get an application that already does that. And then there is additional value in that, which is they also usually collect analytics about how people are interacting with those messages. So in your example that you just mentioned with the marketing messaging, people will interact with that, either click the call to action buttons or close it or ignore it, and it will continue showing up or something like that. And then with the analytics that they collect, you can then understand where your message came through. Did people convert? Did it work, etc.?
How's it being received?
Exactly. And then you can adjust it and do whatever you need to do. So this is really part of what in-app messaging can really do. There are other scenarios or examples of use cases where we use in-app messaging. So here are a few that I want to list because there is so much we can actually do with them as product managers. Marketing that you mentioned is one. Onboarding. These days, with product-led products in businesses and product-led growth, onboarding is a really important thing to have in a system. Where when I'm talking about onboarding, I'm talking about how do we get the users to learn about the product in the most easiest way and help them through the process. So this is another example where we have all seen products that we go in, and the first time we use it, there is this tooltip popping up in an area and tell us, oh, do this. And then next, it tells you do that. And then you go through a flow and you learn how to use the product. All of this is done with in-app messaging as well. And companies have the option to either develop it in-house. So every time that they need to do a new flow for onboarding or introduce a new flow functionality, they have to develop that. Or you use an in-app messaging product that help you doing this. So that's also very powerful. And we can talk just about that for an episode or two, because there are a lot of studies already out there about how many steps you should put in there, what language to use, what examples you can do, should you use videos in it or not. And there are also different experiences between different products, depending on the product itself.
Yeah, that's a great example because I like to use a lot of different tools. I like to explore the new tools coming on the market. And whenever I sign up for an account, I love being able to use the application right away and those kind of in-app messaging that comes along with it. I know Figma had that. I use some video editing tools and they did the same kind of stuff. So that's extremely beneficial because it encouraged me to keep using the product.
And the interesting thing when you do it next time is to really assess, does it really help you? Did they build it right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you could definitely have flows that are built properly in a great way that really help you. And you can have ones that really annoys.
I have clicked out of them before. So
exactly. I can tell you that a few years ago, I was working, I will not mention names, but we were putting such an onboarding flow. And I knew that it's not really recommended to put too many items, because when you put too many items in the flow, no one is really getting to the later ones. They are tired. People have really short attention span for these things. So you really need to be very concise and really lead them in a very quick way. And usually the recommendations, I think, are not more than 5 or 6 steps. And I was working with someone and they wanted to put the entire flow in there. So when we designed the flow, it was like 27 steps. And I was like, yeah, this is not going to work. And I was overruled, but I didn't really mind because, that was a great experience. Okay, let's see. Let's make it as an experiment. Let's put the 27 steps. Although it took us some effort to do it, which is what, you don't want to waste time on things that will not work. But that was a good also eye-opener for that person that I worked with, because we put this 27 steps and luckily we were using an in-app messaging that helped us doing it in a much faster way. We didn't have to develop it in the application, because just imagine what it would be if it was a developer that has to develop these 27 steps.
Yes.
And then we tell them, you know what, no one is using it. That's a total waste of time.
Yeah.
But what we saw was exactly what I was predicting, that people dropped after, most of them dropped, like 99% dropped after the 5th or 6th step. And only a smaller percentage actually got to the 5th or 6th step. So many of them dropped right in the beginning. So there isn't really any value when you create something like that. You really have to think it through. The nice thing is that you can also treat it as a product or as a feature in your product. So try something, see the reaction, see how many people are using it and what happens, and then improve it. So iterate on it and reiterate on it all the time very quickly, and that will happen. And actually, some of the systems that we're going to talk about actually have ways to test it, like A/B testing. So that is also a feature on the list that is interesting to look at and see when people evaluate these systems. Because if you can actually create two different messages, just imagine with your example of the marketing pop-up or marketing in-app message, if you can actually create 2 or 3 or 4 of these and then segment your users accordingly, like it could be random. So you can say 25% get message A, 25% get message B, 25% C, and etc. And then if you have a lot of users, of course, then it makes sense. If you don't have a lot of users, then you will not have statistically will not have enough information to get there. But you'll be able to see, with enough users, what they reacted to and how much they converted. And if they're randomly selected, it's even better because this way, it's not targeted to a specific user, unless, of course, you have to target it to a specific user. Which actually leads me to another feature to look for in in-app messaging, segmentation.
Mm-hmm.
So segmentation is where we can choose who is going to see which message. So imagine that there are different personas of your application, and each persona, all of them are logging in the same way, but they use the system in different ways. When you do the onboarding, in the onboarding example, you want to target your onboarding to the right type of persona. So you need to have segmentation in that way to be able to know who they are and what type of persona they belong to. And then you can show them, the right onboarding. So that's another thing to really have a look at and see. And we will interview our guests for the product. We will, check with them about these things. So that will be really interesting.
Yeah, that's great. Another one I had in mind was feature introduction, to where if a new feature is implemented into the application, some people may not know it's there. So if you tell people, I'm thinking of tool I use that does that, where it notifies you if something has changed or an improvement has been made. And I think that's really helpful because I know times where I've been inside an application, I didn't know something existed or didn't know something was there or was improved down the road. And a prompt would have been great to advise me, like, hey, start using this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where segmentation can help as well, where you, again, do segmentation based on people that will find you use for those features, or users that are new to the system versus users that use it already for a while. Maybe you want to promote it only for, more senior users of your application. So it makes sense to them, where new users, it might just confuse them. So there are many different ways to do that.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, even I'm thinking from a tier standpoint, there are different tiers of paid tiers.
Exactly.
So you may have a pro account where, hey, we got new pro account features where you show that to pro account holders, but not show it to the free tier. So that's a good example.
Yeah. And actually, with SaaS and cloud products these days, it's really important what you said, that there are new features coming up all the time and they release them. We don't even notice they release new features. We don't even notice, unless the product will change a bit, the look and feel, then we might notice, oh, something have changed here. But I remember many, many times that I, was surprised to see a new feature on Google Suite that I didn't even realize is there. Features that I, looked for before because I needed them, but they were not existing. And all of a sudden they appeared and I'm like, oh, I can do that. I didn't even know that. Sometimes I did notice in Google, they do put a bit of in-app messaging, but not too much. I think they're relying more on word of mouth, I guess.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I'm thinking if you're observing how people are using your tool, I wonder if you could direct messages to people who might be struggling with something. You may notice some sort of usage pattern in how people are using the application, and you may be able to develop some in-app messaging to help particular user groups with things.
Absolutely. What can be done with some of the systems, if you have if they also track the data, or you can link it to tracking the data of the usage of the system, then if you find that a specific place people are getting stuck, you could target that exact place, and when they're getting stuck, to actually show them that help right there. So that could be exactly another scenario. But I also remembered that I used it in the past to tell people that a feature is going to sunset. So the opposite of what you said, where I'm introducing a new feature, we actually saw by the analytics that people are not using specific features, and we decided to let go of those features. But you want to get your user prepared in advance, just in case that they're using them. And again, this is where segmentation can help, that you can put this message only to users that are
using it.
Are using it, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We sunset also, it wasn't really sunsetting, but it was Java was discontinued by Oracle, the Java plugins.
Mm-hmm.
And part of our application was a Java based plugin. So we had to convert that, and we wanted to make sure users know about it and they stop using that part and whatever. So we also used the in-app messaging for that.
Oh, that's cool. That's a really nice use example.
There could be so many use cases. Another example was really cool. Also, it's related to product-led. Usually, when we think about product-led, we think about the onboarding. How do we get people to use it? But part of it could be also for the churn, to reduce churn. And another thing that we did was we actually had this predictive analytics model that our BI developed. And we were able to predict with some, error rate, but it was quite accurate, churn in our clients. So, and we were able to predict it based on their activity, based on different things that they did in the system. And what we did, we put this model, and we said, if we're seeing a client that is going to churn, in the next 2 months or 3 months, we will start putting messages, in-app messages on their screen to help them do things. And then for clients that are close to their subscription end, sometimes the subscription is not handled by the same users that are using the application. So the company will buy it, they will pay for it, and then their users, their employees will use the application. And they will be oblivious about when is the subscription coming to an end or something like that.
Yeah.
So a month before, we would put an in-app message saying your subscription is coming to an end in a month. Please contact your
administrator.
Yeah, exactly, to renew it or something like that. So we were able to, again, utilize in-app messaging in these ways to really help us with our reducing the churn and getting subscription earlier approved and stuff like that.
Well, that's really cool. I love analytics. So anytime you get to use data and analytics, that's exciting. That's exciting. So
I know that. And predictive analytics is really a cool thing. When I saw what we were able to do with that, I was like, oh, wow, this is really, really amazing.
That's especially valuable if you're especially a startup or something like that, where you can't afford to suffer churn,
Yes, you're right. But you do have a bit of a conundrum there because usually you don't have enough information.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And data works only when you have enough information.
That's true. You got to have the data.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Some other things we talked in the past, I think it was with the Pendo episode with Andrew. He told us how he's using the in-app messaging a bit for experimentation. So that's another cool usage of in-app messages, where you want to experiment a specific new feature, but you don't want to spend too much money on developing it. And what you could do with in-app messaging, you could put like a button on your screen, and then when people click on that button for a call for action or something specific you want to test, and then when they click that button, you put an in-app message that tell them something related to that. So that could be, it really depends on your what you're trying to test. He actually gave a great workshop in one of the Pendoramas. That's an event Pendo arranged. He used Pendo for that as well. But that was back in the previous company where he worked. So I'm not sure how he does it these days. But that could be, again, another great way to use in-app messaging.
Now that we've been talking about this, it seems like there's endless amounts of use cases to where you can improve the experiences for your customers, but also really help improve the application long term.
Yes, exactly. And one of the interesting things is also when we talk with companies that are using these products, not all of them, it's the product managers that are using them. Now, our podcast is, product for product. So we're trying to help product managers, with tools that helping us do our jobs better and make our products better. But in many cases, these applications have lots of usages throughout the entire company. So I mentioned examples of sales. You mentioned an example of marketing, onboarding, and sunsetting new functions. This is part of the go-to-market for a product. And in some places, go-to-market is handled by other people, not necessarily by the product manager. In other places, it's also handled by us. So there is a lot of people that are actually using these type of applications. And companies I've seen have started using them from different type of functions in the organization and then spread it out because they saw the potential to others. And spread it out across many other clients, many other departments as well.
Yeah, it seems like anybody in the organization who has a message or wants to learn something about their users or want to inform their users, even customer service, where it's just say, hey, I need to return something, and maybe something like that. I need to return something to the store. I need information on that. Customer service can use this kind of in-app messaging to help facilitate those.
Yeah, that's actually is another use case because some of these applications also have a resource center. So the resource center is almost like another type of in-app message. It's something that you can open all the time. So it's not popping up based on your usage of the application, but you have usually a button or something that you click on and then it opens the resource center. And what I've seen companies do in products with these resource centers, I've done it also myself, are a lot of different things. You could put, the different onboarding flows so people can actually go through them when they want rather than when the application pops it up. So it's on demand kind of. You can put links to support, so integration to support system like Zendesk or others. You can put other type of resources like articles or documents about the application so they can learn it on their own. I also put in there links to system health page. So if people want to see, how healthy is the system, it's a page we don't host inside the application, but that was a way for me to be able to bring that information forward. So it's always there and it's available. So there are really a lot of different ways you can use this type of in-app message, which is a resource center.
That's interesting because initially I was thinking, well, it's going to be on the landing page, right? So first thing somebody sees a pop-up saying, hey, some sort of message, but having page specific in-app messaging where user may never see it if they never go to that page. So that's even more targeted to a specific use case. So because in the research I did, I was looking at you don't want to annoy users with these messages.
Yes, that's a very good point.
So sometimes there's a obvious limit that you have to put on these kind of messages. You don't want that necessarily to pop up every time they open the application.
That is actually a very good point. And some of the applications will have features to help you with that. So throttling, almost like a pipeline and priorities between them. So for example, the throttling can say you cannot get more than one message a day or something like that. And then what is the priorities between them is there are a few messages going on. Right. And that's also, I hope we'll remember to ask all of these questions, our guests. But if we don't, then anyone that listen here, I think it's a start of a good list of checklist to check when you compare these companies and try to choose them. And maybe in our wrap up episode at the end of the series, we'll be able to talk about these again. Yeah, no, this is a very good point about not annoying users.
Because another point is, these in-app messages aren't push notifications. So 95% of the applications I use, I turn off notifications because push notifications when I'm not using the application, they can be helpful, but oftentimes they come at inopportune times. But in-app messaging, when I'm actually using the application, is like, that's beneficial to me because I'm actually there for purpose.
Yes.
So that's a distinction, and I wonder if some companies or some project teams are are you using those in sequence or using those together, or are they completely separate?
That's where the complexity starts. So when people implement these type of applications, you really do need to be in sync with everyone else that is using it in the organization. So, if this is just product managers and product management, department, or with a product team, it's the scope is probably much smaller than if also sales and marketing and other people are using that. And that's where usually you will have someone that owns that product, and maybe the different type of messagings you're going through them, because you want to make sure that the look and feel is the same, the design of these messages, how they're showing on the screen, not annoying to the users, to your point, etc. So there's definitely needs to be someone that owns that. And if you have everyone, nilly-willy create their in-app messages, and then you'll have a chaos in the application. So that's really important to make sure that it's done. And I've seen situations where these things happen, that there were the same in-app message that was created by different people, and it was overriding each other, and or language that didn't make any sense, or things that just didn't work, and whatever. Another feature to look for in this application is that you can actually test it. So it's not going to production right away. You can actually almost stage it on an environment and then be able to test it. Because it's really like any other features that you're releasing out there. You want to see that it's working. You want to see it's making sense to the users. You want to iron out any of the kinks in there.
Right. And that goes back to the experimentation piece of this that you mentioned. Releasing it to a small group of users, core users, and seeing if they use it and what they think.
Definitely. But even before that, you really want to see that it works. So I'm just talking about quality assurance, really.
Oh, yeah. QA. Yeah, for sure.
Another point that actually, when you mentioned before that you're turning off any push notifications, another point, I was thinking right away about mobile push notification on mobile for applications.
Yeah, that's specifically what I'm speaking to. Yeah.
In-app messaging for mobile are actually a different beast than in-app messaging for desktop and websites. And that's also another consideration, because usually the design of mobile application is different. The technology is different if we're talking about actual applications versus web app. And if you have a product that supports both, you want to really capture both of them, and that's also become tricky, because it's maybe across different, not just platforms, but across applications. Some products will have a very full featured application on the web, but their mobile is going to be a scaled down one with less features. So there is a lot of things that can go on between these type of applications. So that's another thing to consider when looking into in-app messaging, what you need exactly there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because I'm thinking of a mobile experience, but yeah, for sure, if you're in a web browser, the whole messaging system may be different. You may have users. I've used mobile for particular experiences as versus the web browser. And usually on mobile, I'm moving faster and I'm doing something on the fly, and so I may not need that messaging. I may not be trying to contact customer service or something like that. So that's a good point.
Yeah. So I'm sure we forgot a lot of scenarios, and when we go through the different episodes, we will hear more scenarios that we didn't even think are available or people are doing. And that's also what's exciting to hear about other people's experiences and how they do it. So I'm really looking forward for this series.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing more about how in-app messaging makes a team stronger, makes the product stronger, makes the experiences better. And looking forward to hearing those stories.
Absolutely.
Well, great. Well, thanks for joining me on this series, Moshe. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure as always. You know how much I love to talk about products. And like I said, I'm excited to learn more about this and see which products we'll find out there that we don't even know about.
Yep. Sounds good. Well, thanks to all the listeners. Please provide any feedback. Go on Apple Podcast and please rate and review the show. We're looking forward to hearing any kind of feedback. And thanks again, and we'll talk to you later.
This episode of Product for Product was brought to you by The Resurrector, a book by Moshe Mikanovsky, now pre-selling at igg.me/at/the-resurrector until August 23rd, 2021.